We are live on Substack right now. Taylin, how are you keeping?
Dude, I'm not too bad, man. I always feel weird when I do calls with you because I know you're in the UK, I'm in Australia. We're in like the two worst time zones to coordinate. So I always know one of us is like first thing in the morning and the other person's at night.
Yeah, it's not easy. But yeah, it's really cool to connect with you again. Like we did a podcast episode a few weeks ago. Back then I was sitting in my parents' kitchen doing that one for some reason, but it's cool to be in our proper locations again. But yeah, Taylin, if anyone's joining us here, and by the way, if you are joining us here tonight and you have a question about anything that we say during the course of this live, just feel free to pop it into the comments and we'll come back to it and try to answer it. We're going to be talking about how to build a writing based business. So if you have any questions about that for either of us, just feel free to ask away. But Taylor, for anyone who's joining us tonight, maybe doesn't know straight away who you are, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? And maybe they missed the podcast episode as well. But just tell us what you're all about, what you're working on right now, and yeah, that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. So the short cliff notes is I've always been an artist and creative at heart. I used to be a music ghostwriter, actually, for an independent record label in my early 20s. But I really struggled financially as a starving artist and lived that full on. I had to eat like lemons for dinner for 3 days once because I was so broke.
Yeah, I love that story in the podcast. If anyone wants to go back and listen after, it's really interesting. So yeah, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, it's a fun one to look back on. People are sometimes like, "Why didn't you just fast?" I'm like, "It wasn't cool back then. It wasn't a thing."
Only do it in school.
Um, so yeah, I did that, and then I became a teacher. I taught college, which was teaching music production in college because I was tired of being so broke, and I wanted another crack at making money creatively and pursuing being an artist. And it wasn't until I met someone that said, "Write online every day for a year, and it will change your life." I had no idea how, but I said, "Screw it," and I did it. And I wrote on Twitter, and "What's up, Jonathan? Welcome." I love Jonathan, and yeah, it changed my life. And ever since then, I became like a social media ghostwriter. I then got into newsletter ghostwriting. I've grown a couple different businesses around writing as well, like teaching other people to be ghostwriters. I've launched some digital products, a community, and I've become just obsessed with how writers can monetize and earn money. And that's pretty much where we're at today.
Nice. So, Teal, I love it. I want to ask you a question about something you're doing right now. So you literally posted about this in a note 13 hours ago. You said you're testing ghostwriting paid Substack newsletters, and you sent a bunch of cold emails, and you're just going to kind of keep us abreast of what's going on. Tell us a little bit about that. So I've seen you talking about this. I'm really interested in what your thinking is. Tell us what you're up to.
Yeah, of course.
Hmm.
So I did social media ghostwriting first. So that was on X, and that was in 2022, 2023 primarily. And then LinkedIn became a really popular platform. So then I was ghostwriting on LinkedIn. And then I came to Substack, and now I'm like, okay, I wonder if like ghostwriting on Substack is a viable thing. And there's quite a bit of people who I've been chatting with that have been asking me, can you ghostwrite newsletters? I see other creators talking about ghostwriting newsletters and maybe being a Substack ghostwriter. And I personally don't want to be one of those people who's like, hey, you can totally ghostwrite newsletters. I've never done it, but just go out there and just offer it and just find the clients and it will work. I'm like, well, I should probably put my actions where my mouth is. So I decided to do a post that was like, hey, I'm going to test this before, telling everybody that it's a viable path and that they can do it. And
Hmm.
so I decided to send some cold emails. I sent almost 10,000 and I got 12 people who are interested. And now we're chatting and I'm seeing if any of them will actually become clients. But even if they don't, I'll just still tell that story. Like, hey, I sent all these emails and it didn't work. Here's why I think it didn't work. And I'm
Hmm.
also going to test trying to find clients on LinkedIn in the DMs as well, starting next week. And I'm going to give this like a real shot and see if I can find 5 clients for around 2,500 bucks per month to
Hmm.
see like, is this lucrative? And if I can confirm it and verify it myself that it's lucrative, then I'll be excited to tell people, hey, like this is actually a pretty viable way to make some money as a writer. Here's how I'm doing it, and here's how I recommend you do it as well. And I'm
Hmm.
just in that testing phase.
I love it. I love the fact that you're basically, yeah, you're conducting this experiment in public and you're letting everyone in on what you're doing, which is not something that most people do. And I think it's really brave. I think it's a really cool approach to these kind of things. You've probably done this kind of thing before in the past plenty of times, but yeah, I love that approach of just yeah, keeping everyone on board with what you're doing. Um, Tell us more about ghostwriting, Taylin. So, like, we're obviously talking a bit about um, having a writing based business, and you really did build what you're doing now off the back of ghostwriting, what we talked about in the podcast episode. Tell us, if someone is interested, first of all, in ghostwriting, what does it actually mean to be a ghostwriter, just in case they don't know? And secondly, if someone wants to start as a ghostwriter, what's the best way to get started?
Yeah, great question. So when I first started writing, I did not know that ghostwriting was a thing. Like I was just writing on Twitter and I read a tweet and someone's like, "Oh, I'm ghostwriting for people on Twitter and I'm charging like 3,000 US a month." And
Mm.
I'm from Canada. So for me that's like $1 million when you convert it. And I was like, "Oh my God, I could replace my teaching salary with ghostwriting if this is true." But I was really skeptical and
Mm.
I didn't know if this was actually a legit thing. And it took me about 6 months in the beginning, not knowing what I was doing and stumbling and failing and working for free super late at night. And I ended up getting my first ghostwriting client, not writing books, but writing Twitter content back in the day.
Mm.
And it was about 50 cents per follower that added up to be about 3,000 bucks a month in the beginning.
Mm.
And that was when it like completely broke my brain. And I was like, oh, you can actually do this. Like everyone had always told me my whole life, it's very hard to make a living as a writer. It's selling books is very hard. Like it's don't bet on that. It's not going to really work out, or it's very unlikely it will. And when I made money as a ghostwriter, I was like, oh, maybe there's other viable paths that are possible. And
Mm.
that eventually got me into like ghostwriting LinkedIn posts. And I'm like, okay, social media ghostwriting is a thing that does work. And then I got interested in newsletters and we've done some newsletter ghostwriting for our clients, but it's not something I've like gone all in on yet until this year. And my current belief now, and this is actually something I want to ask you about a little bit later,
Mhm.
is there's so many people that want to be authors. And I'm starting to see the bigger picture where I'm like, a book seems to me more like a lead magnet, or like you write it for you and for like your art and your soul, or you
Mm.
write it to build your credibility. But there's so many other ways as a writer that you can make like a good living.
Mm.
And yes, like write that book and release it, but you could also ghostwrite on the side and you could do just as well as if you went to college or if you were
Yeah.
in a pretty like a trade that makes decent money.
Mm.
And I part of my, I would say, mission is to just make more writers aware that this is a thing.
Mm.
Like you can ghostwrite books, yes, but even that, from what I've heard, can be challenging. You can
Mm.
also ghostwrite social media content and newsletters. And will it be hard work? Yes. Will you have to, learn that skill and go and acquire your own clients? Of course. But, maybe making a living doing writing isn't as difficult or as impossible as people made it out to me when I was younger. And I just hope
Mm.
that more people can learn that as well.
Yeah, I do think that's definitely a thing where we're kind of led to believe that you can never make any good money as a writer. And the question I always get from most people, and we'll come back to you guys' question in a second. I see there's maybe a couple of things there. The question I always get from people is, how many books have you sold? And they always ask me that question, how many books have you sold? Because they think when I say I'm a writer, that's the only way I can possibly make money. They don't really, people outside of our like nation or industry have no idea about paid subscriptions and ghostwriting and sponsorships and digital products linked to that and coaching, all that sort of stuff. So people hear that you're a writer and they automatically think you have to sell tons and tons of books in order to make money. Obviously, people do that, and that is a viable way of doing it. But I think you're right. I think with books, they can act as like a supplement to what you do. They can help build your credibility, as you said, or they can be passion projects. And I kind of feel that for me, writing fiction is a passion project that I do want to generate money from further down the line. But I also kind of feel that with writing fiction books, you're kind of putting out real estate out there that will one day yield more uh, credibility and income for you further down the line. So I love the idea of having other sources of income that are writing based, and then freeing yourself up to do more of the fun writing that you want to do, like write fiction, for instance. Jonathan, your friend Jonathan there has said the hardest way to make a living as a writer is by writing and selling books. I do agree very much so with that as someone who does write. and sell books. It's definitely not the best pathway to. I think ghostwriting is definitely a lot better. Karen, just going back, we are taking questions. So if anyone does want to ask a question at any point during what we're saying, then feel free to just pop it into the comments as we go. Taylin, have you ever written a book, or would you consider writing a book in future?
Okay, so I don't think I've ever actually shared this publicly, but the first bit of writing that I did attempt to do was a book. This is
Mm.
before I even discovered Twitter. It was before COVID, actually. And I was like, I'm just going to dive in. I have all these ideas. I'm going to write a book. And I outlined it and I wrote a couple of the chapters. It is like really bad. I didn't know anything about writing back then. I still have all the drafts and I sometimes read them and I'm like, oh, this is kind of interesting. But I just like eventually fell off of it. I wasn't that serious. It's like
Mm.
7 or 8 years ago. And then I learned like marketing and business. And I would say that I'm like thinking about it now and coming back to it. I don't know if it'll be a book or if it'd be like short stories, but when I learned more about business and marketing and sales, it made me think, oh, maybe I could do this from a frame of possibility instead of, oh, I'm going to write a book and just hope to hell I can quit my job and be an author.
Mm.
And I learned this thing in business and a lot of this from Jonathan as well. Like for those that see Jonathan in here, like Jonathan's written a couple books. He's like one of the greatest people I've ever met, like in person. Everyone like definitely check him out. He's releasing a new book soon too. He crushes. And I just remember learning that there's like cash flow businesses and equity businesses. And like a cash flow business could be like a ghostwriting agency, an info business. You're selling courses and doing a community. Could be like a micro SaaS tool if you're someone that knows programming. And you can make a pretty decent amount of money, like even up to like 50K, even 100K a month. So like we'll say good money with like cash flow businesses.
Mm.
And then there's like equity businesses, and Uber is like an equity business. They're like, we're going to lose money for 10 years and we just are going to get all this money from investors and stuff. Now, to tie this back to the writing, I kind of think of books as like an equity business, not in the sense of we're trying to be the next Uber, but if I was going to write a book, I'd be thinking about it in terms of intellectual property. So what nonfiction book could I create that would give me more credibility in my field? Because one thing I'll be honest about is coming from the background of being a content writer, I would say the broader like writing community like doesn't really take me seriously, and they're very vocal about
Really?
it. Yeah, many of them are like, "You're not a writer. Like you just like written social media content. Like you're not serious." And that's okay. Like I understand where they're coming from, but if you write a book and it's good and you actually can get some like buzz around it, I do think it gives you this credence of credibility in a specific topic. Like, oh, this person knows what they're talking about. They actually wrote a book. Is it written well? Even if it's self-published, I just think people will be like, oh, so he actually sat down and wrote a book. And it can give you more like brand elevation.
Mm.
I remember hearing from Ryan Holiday once that in the beginning when he was selling books, he was making more from coaching people than the book sales themselves. But the
Mm.
books were what was allowing him to get the coaching clients.
Mm.
So that's how I kind of think about it. As okay, if I was going to do nonfiction, what could I write that would give me a big credibility boost and it would just improve the other business infrastructure that I have? But then if I was going to do fiction, I think the play is to actually try to create true IP. Harry Potter is like such a big mega example, but like, could you create something that is an actual world that has merchandise,
Mm.
that maybe there's like a community or like a back end, like I think it's called like Potterverse. I can't remember, Pottermore or something.
Yep. More, yeah.
Where yeah, Pottermore. Yeah, you're from the UK, so you're like, oh, I know. Where you can go and learn about all the characters and the histories and stuff, and I'm like, okay, that's interesting to me. Like
Mm.
creating a fictional world, even if it's on a small scale, that people can kind of lose themselves in. They can buy some more things around it. It's like key.
Mm.
And that might be hard to do in the beginning, but that is personally how I think about it, is try to separate, this is like ghostwriting, this is for cash flow, this is a book, and this is either for credibility or I'm trying to create IP that can like live beyond me, kind of like a franchise, but not on such a big scale, because I don't want to make it sound like you have to swing for like $1 million-billion franchise.
Mm.
But I do think just thinking in terms of like equity versus cash flow has been helpful for me thinking about writing a book and how I would approach nonfiction and fiction if I did it.
Mm. That's so interesting. I'm going to come to one of these questions in a second, but I want to just ask another question off the back of that. If you did have a book, Taylin, out there, how would you go about promoting it to your audience and then trying to reach a wider audience? Would you run paid ads? Would you just create a lot of content and try and push people towards it? And would you build up to it like well in advance of the book coming out? And then, sorry, there's a lot of questions. After the book came out, how would you sort of continue to promote it as a product to your audience?
So it would depend if I was doing fiction or nonfiction, but let's maybe go. Yeah, I'll say how I'd probably do nonfiction. The first thing that I would do is I actually would write the book in public.
Mm,
I'm very inspired by Mark Manson and James Clear, where some people here might not know this, but when they were writing Atomic Habits and The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, they were doing blogs back in the day. And they were actually testing a lot of the chapters on their blogs. And whenever they would go like really, really viral, it was a confirmation, oh, this chapter should be in the book.
mm,
And if they got feedback, it helped them refine the ideas in the book. And I'm pretty sure Mark's idea of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, that only became the title of the book because it was his most like giga viral blog post ever. So it was like validated on social media, and that was increasing the chances of the book performing well. So I really like that approach, and I just personally wish that more authors like wrote books in public. I think that would
mm,
be cool to hear every week, like, hey, this is what I worked on this week. Like, these are the ideas. Even starting a community that's like, hey, I'm writing a book. If you're writing one, like, come into this community and let's write it together.
mm,
That would be part of the way I would do the marketing. I don't think it would help creating like insane amount of buzz, but I do think it would help with getting like a niche loyal audience of fans.
mm,
As for like promoting it leading up to, I know Jonathan Goodman, who is, I don't know if he's still in here, but guys, he actually has released a blog post on how he's promoting his book and some of the mistakes he made promoting the previous ones. And it's like really insane and really detailed. Would highly recommend checking that out.
mm,
But some things that I would consider for nonfiction are like, how does it connect to my other business ecosystem and what problems does it solve? So the
mm,
same way that, actually I'm gonna use Kieran Drew as an example. I think he's really smart with the way he's done this. So Kieran Drew has a course called High Impact Writing. He has a course called Magnetic Emails and one called like Productize Your Knowledge or something like that. So
mm,
he's basically teaching people to write and make money as a writer. And I could see very naturally everything he talks about, here's why I write, like here's how I'm able to travel and write. Here's the different ways you can turn writing into a business. And then you just sell the book
mm,
within all of that ecosystem. So you're not necessarily selling the book. This would be the biggest misconception I see people making. It wouldn't be, hey, buy my book. It would be, hey, here's a problem that I'm solving. My book happens to be one way for you to like get a solution to this problem and relieve your pain around this topic.
mm.
And that is one thing that I would consider. And yeah, I see Jonathan says, thanks for the shout out. Book launch article is pinned to my Substack here for anyone interested. Yeah, Jonathan is like an actual published author with, I believe, with one of the big publishing houses. So like, I fucking love Jonathan. I could just glaze him all day. He's great.
Nice. I'm gonna go check that out straight after this. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, thanks, Jonathan, for sharing that. And yeah, I actually am gonna go look at that because and everyone else who's in this conversation should check it out as well. Um, I'm gonna go back to another question and great answer by the way, Taylin, with that last one. That was fantastic. I love that approach to it. I'm a big fan of Kieran Drew as well. I did a podcast episode with him a while back, and some of the stuff he said was just amazing in it. So yeah, big fan of his. Um, JG Gemma said, "What platform is the most lucrative for ghostwriting?" What would you say?
LinkedIn is the one that I've like confirmed to be the most lucrative, mainly because the people who are going to pay pretty good prices for stuff, like anywhere between 1,000 and 5,000 US per month, are on LinkedIn. They tend to be founders, business owners, coaches who are looking for help driving sales and revenue, people who are creating SaaS companies. Like those types of people are on LinkedIn. You can go and find them. You can DM them. They have a great thing called Sales Navigator for finding them. So if you know what you're doing, LinkedIn is definitely one of the best. I'm
Mm,
trying to figure out if Substack is also one of the best, as we said earlier about the experiment. But my theory with Substack is that you don't find ghostwriting clients on the platform because most people on Substack actually like to write and they want to be here and they don't want a ghostwriter. You find people on LinkedIn and say, hey, are you aware of like the possibility of doing a paid newsletter on Substack? Here's how it can make you more money than you make me. If you also have courses and other things that you can upsell to people in the paid newsletter, it'll be a positive ROI and you get to grow your list.
Mm.
To me, that's what I'm going to test and see. That's my theory as to what will allow getting ghostwriting clients to be the easiest.
Yeah. Okay. So LinkedIn's definitely the best one at the minute, and Substack potentially could be as well. Um, Karen asked, is Taylin considering or open to taking on mentees? If so, is there an email we may have to connect? Do you take on mentees, Taylin, at the minute?
Yeah, I do. I do run like a ghostwriting coaching program. I don't market it like that publicly,
Mm.
but yeah, I definitely do have like courses, and sometimes I do one-to-ones as well. It just depends. So if you send me a DM and just kind of let me know about you and your situation, and I might have something that fits.
Nice. Perfect. Um, okay. Again, anyone who's joining us, there's 123 people here right now or at some point in this conversation. If you have any questions about starting a writing based business for either of us that you want to ask, just feel free to pop it into the comments. If you have any questions for Taylin specifically, about what he's working on or his background, feel free to ask us that as well. Taylin, is there anything else you want to maybe sort of bring up in terms of if you were starting a writing based business now going into 2026? What would your thoughts be on that? What would you sort of be focusing on at the minute in terms of the overall landscape of writing?
Um, this is great, and then I have a few questions for you too. So
Yeah, go
this
ahead.
leads
You
in.
can take over. I'm just asking all the questions here.
Okay, great. I don't want to hijack your live here, man.
Yeah, go ahead. It's
uh,
fine.
the okay, this is the one thing I'm noticing a lot coming to Substack and chatting with more writers is, learning the skill of writing is fantastic. It's a great specialist skill. It will teach you to think more clearly. It'll teach you to like basically create tension within your pieces, to open big questions, explore them. All of that is fantastic. But I think the writers who are doing well also know marketing and sales to some degree. And
Nice.
that's what I'm noticing. Like I was chatting with somebody the other day who was like, "Oh, it's really hard to sell books because when I do a note and I say buy my book, nobody buys it." And I instantly thought to myself, I'm like, that's not self promotion. Like that
Mm.
coming from my marketing world, like that's just not how you would market anything. Is just buy my book. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I think that a lot of writers going into 2026, it doesn't really matter what you're selling. If you want to get into ghostwriting, if you want to sell courses, if you just want to sell some type of product or service or make any kind of money from writing, I really recommend learning like how do you effectively market? How do you build an email list? How do you do sales? And I don't mean in like some unethical, sleazy way. Like I used to have a really big repulsion to sales. I've slowly come around to it and see sales as something where you're asking questions to figure out what people need and seeing if you genuinely can help them. And if they're struggling to make a decision, you ask them the questions that help them realize what the best decision is for them. I think that's a very empowering skill. It's very
Mm.
similar to life coaching, actually, just for a different outcome. And if writers can explore learning that as well and combining that with the skill of writing, anything that they want to monetize in terms of writing becomes more possible.
Mm.
Again, like any product, any service, you just have to learn marketing and sales as well to some degree. You don't have to be like a sales specialist. You don't need to go start selling cars on the side as a side gig. You don't need to go work as like a marketer either. But learning like the basics of marketing and sales is what I would recommend for anyone going into 2026. Like it will change the trajectory of your career.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's one thing that so many writers are just really bad at or like afraid to do or even to try to do is to sell themselves or their products or their writing. Yeah, it's something I definitely really struggled with in the past, still struggle with now a little bit. But I think like you, I'm kind of coming around to it more and more. I'm seeing sales as more that conversation, that back and forth between you and your audience to kind of work out what they want. Yeah.
Epic,
Yeah.
man. I love it. This leads in nicely to the questions I have for you, which is like, okay, because you've been writing books and things
Mhm.
like that. I'm curious what your business infrastructure does look like. Like, what kinds of products and services do you have? How have the books like fit in and helped you
Mm.
with your business? And what in what ways maybe did you release your book and like, oh, I didn't expect this. Like, I'm so curious about that whole side of things.
Yeah. Yeah, I've kind of got a bit of a mishmash of different things. I still feel like I'm relatively new to the whole writing based business kind of side of things. Like I've only been writing on Substack, for instance, for a couple of years. So I'm still kind of in that place where I don't feel like I've settled on the one big thing that is the main driver for me. So I look at ways I can get more paid subscribers or VIP subscribers, that sort of thing on Substack. But I also look at how can I create and sell digital products of different levels, at different scales. So like entry level, like tripwire products are like $20 up to like higher, like several $100 kind of products. And then I've recently started doing coaching as well, like one-to-one work with people, which is really, really good fun. I love that. And I think that's something that really lights me up. As just as a person, I love working with people and seeing them figure things out and seeing the light bulb go on, if you know what I mean. So
Mhm.
I've always wanted to have multiple income streams working together towards a common goal of just having stability and growing my wealth in that sense. In terms of writing, because I write fiction, it doesn't really connect in directly into any of that stuff necessarily, but it does inform the way I think about sales and how I approach it and how I test things. I feel that I wouldn't have any confidence, or I'd have less confidence in front of a camera or in front of doing audio and things like that if I hadn't learned to talk about my books more openly. I know that sounds really weird to say, but um, talking about your books and selling, excuse me, selling your books is not easy to do. And I think once you kind of practice that more and more, the better you get at that, the more confident you get, and then that kind of informs everything else that you do as well. In that regard, in terms of your writing, and it's just helped me learn about things like social media, how to use social media to promote books, and then how I can then potentially use that to promote other aspects of my writing then as well. So it's informed different aspects of it, but doesn't necessarily all work together in terms of the books and the fiction, no, non-fiction side of things. Yeah.
In what ways, when you were selling your fiction books, in what things worked and what things didn't work for you? Maybe like one or two.
Yeah. Sorry, my screen keeps going off here and then I'm moving the mouse. That's where all my lights coming from. Uh,
I love that.
so,
I thought you had this like crazy production
no,
studio
it's all
with
right.
a big
I've just
light
got a
and you're
big
like
screen.
posing.
I got one of these big like curved screens, so it's kind of light in this dark room right now. Um, yeah. So in terms of fiction, one thing I find that really works is getting other people to talk about my books. So if I talk about them, it gets very repetitive. I'm not a naturally extroverted, all singing, all dancing kind of TikTok kind of person. But there are people on TikTok who are like that, and they can talk about my book instead. So I give away a lot of free copies of it, and then let them review it, let them create the kind of content that I don't really feel as comfortable creating, and then I can share that content myself to my audience directly. So you're working with other creators who are more comfortable in certain arenas when it comes to creating content and letting them do the stuff you don't really want to do, and then just finding ways to kind of boost that to your audience as well. So that's something that has worked really well. Um, it also gives me amazing feedback at the same time because I can have people reading my books, reviewing them, pointing out mistakes or like plot issues and things like that, even before the book has fully come out. And I can fix all those kind of things in process before it gets out there into like paper form. So that's worked really well working with other people. Things that haven't worked, I don't know actually. I think one thing that I struggle with is just the consistency in promotion a lot of the time. So I sort of get really into something, talk about my book loads, create videos about it, do podcast episodes, whatever. And then I kind of just tail off and move on to something else. So I think for me, it's just trying to like keep my eyes on the prize and stay consistent with it and keep promoting the book beyond whenever it's released as well, because that's a really difficult period after it comes out and you're moving on to the next book. It's really hard to find ways to keep promoting the book that's already out there. That's one thing I really find a difficulty in. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that being challenging, especially with something like fiction. Like if you're doing nonfiction and you have maybe like two different topics, like, oh, when I create content on like this type of thing, I can, reference the book that I wrote. If I create
Mm.
content around this, I can reference the book I wrote. But once you have two fiction books, I can imagine you're writing an article and it's like, which
Yeah.
one do I
What,
reference
what
and
I
where
put
and
into,
how?
yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that'd be
Mm.
challenging.
Mm.
Yeah. When you got started as a writer, were you like looking at becoming a fiction author and then getting into like other aspects of writing, or what was your startup like come up journey like?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to write fiction. I mean, same story that all authors tell you, like they've always wanted to be a writer, kind of thing. But I always wrote stuff whenever I was young, and then I studied creative writing, got a master's in it in university, and then that helped me kind of gain more confidence in how to tell stories and how to write. And but it's something I just enjoy doing. Like I can sit down and write fiction with no real planning ahead of it. I think you just do it and don't really have to think about it too much. Whereas I know other writers maybe have to spend a lot of time very carefully planning things out and kind of psych themselves up to get into the zone. It's one thing I've always just naturally been able to do without having to really put too much effort into. I'm not saying that in a kind of braggy sense because I really don't mean it in that way. I just mean that it's something I feel more comfortable with. In the same way, some people might feel really comfortable with numbers, and science and logic, which they're not things that I connect with very well a lot of the time. So I have to try that, if you know what I mean. So writing's always been more easy for me. I'm naturally a creative person, so I try to lean into that as much as I possibly can. In terms of nonfiction writing, I basically got into that because I needed to pay the bills. So I started doing like freelance work, and which was crap, and I really didn't like doing it, but had to do it at the time, and it just kind of built from that point into something like I'm doing now.
That was the next question I was going to ask you was
Hmm.
if someone else was, early in their writing journey, they're like, I want to be an author, but I'm also considering, maybe like other avenues. I just want to write. Would you recommend they do the book first and then they get into the more business side, the other stuff? Or would you recommend they do the nonfiction other stuff and then do the book on top to accelerate it?
Hmm. I think it depends. It very much depends on your circumstances. So, for instance, if you say you have kids and maybe you got a 9 to 5 job and you're trying to sort of phase out of your 9 to 5 job in your writing and that sort of thing, very very hard to do fiction writing and non-fiction writing at the same time. But to be honest, non-fiction writing is probably the only side of things that's going to initially generate any income. So what I would say is, if you like writing fiction, find a way to do it, but try to treat it like a hobby at the start, and just kind of get more accustomed to the rhythm of sitting down at your desk or wherever you are, each day, and just putting more words into your story. Take the pressure off yourself in that regard. If you're going to put pressure on yourself in terms of writing, put it on the non-fiction side of things. Sorry, my voice is going tonight. Put it in the non-fiction side of things, and try and get freelance writing jobs. Try and learn how to ghostwrite, write on Substack, that sort of stuff. But put the pressure there, and let that kind of form the diamond. But when it comes to fiction, just have fun with it at the start, because if you put pressure on that, you're going to suck the joy out of it. And there's nothing worse than when you get halfway through a book and then you start to hate it and you don't want to finish it anymore, and then that amazing story that you had at the start just falls by the wayside, which I think happens for a lot of authors, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great advice. It checks out similar to my experience too.
Mm.
I'm also curious if being British has helped you in just selling more writing services.
Probably not, to be honest. Like, I mean, any like writing based service I would have used for freelancing was probably American based anyway. Any of the platforms I would have used, but yeah, I don't think, being from Northern Ireland in particular, it definitely doesn't give you any kind of advantage in that regard. But yeah.
I thought the accent would have. I don't know. Maybe it's just me coming from Canada, but whenever I hear a British accent, I instantly think writer, intellectual, very smart,
Really?
very clever. I am dumb.
That is not at all the way we think of ourselves. It really isn't. Yeah, we're very probably pretty self-deprecating near where I'm from, but yeah, we definitely wouldn't think that way of ourselves. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay, it's good to
but
know.
mm,
It's good to know. I don't feel so inferior to the British
you
writers.
really shouldn't feel inferior. Yeah. Um.
Oh my god. And
mm,
I see that a few more people have popped in here as well. Yes, we are doing like a live Q&A. So as much as David and I are asking each other questions here, please feel free to drop any questions you have around writing, monetizing writing, earning as a writer. We're happy to jam back and forth on any of those.
yeah. I'll ask you another question, Taylin. That's okay. Um.
Yeah.
Uh. So how do you balance? And I've probably asked you this question before, actually, but how do you balance the commercial side of your writing, so the actual business side of it, with maintaining your voice online, so, or even the voice that you write in, if you're ghostwriting for somebody else, how do you kind of maintain that creative, like the you part of you, in a sense, versus the having to think about the actual business side of things?
Yeah, no, I love this question. I don't know if this is what you're going to expect for an answer, but I will say nowadays in the AI world, like getting yourself on the page is so important. And more recently, I wanted to become a better writer. So I hired two different writing coaches and I was like, I want to see what each of them give me for feedback. And they read my piece and they said, this is good. There's like, I like the sentence structure. There's logical consistency. You're using the right interesting like headers and things like that. The biggest problem we see is that you're not getting yourself on the page first thing.
Mm.
And I just remember being like, oh shit, like I didn't even really think about that. And they both said like the first thing that I should read on one of your pieces is you. It should be a personal story, a personal observation, and then
Mm.
you can go into all the other stuff. So I say that because I think nowadays people think, oh, I have to sacrifice more of like me and my integrity, my voice, my creativity to be an effective writer. And I would actually argue it's like to be an effective writer, you actually need more of you on the page
Yep.
while still being relevant to the reader. So
Yep.
that's the first way that I think about it is getting your page on the, like or yourself on the page immediately, weaving in little anecdotes, like little kind of like you put the little brackets or whatever, and you're like you have your own little like commentary to some things you're writing can be fun.
Mm.
Whenever you make a point, go in and like tell a story about that and how it's actually applied to like you and your life, a mistake you've made, a win that you have. Like I think weaving all that stuff throughout is really important.
Mm.
The second piece to this that I think about is, especially since writing on Substack, I've noticed that people have this idea that you either write for fun or you write for somebody else. And I've met very few people who can like merge them. And maybe this is because I've worked with Dan Coe. Like I was fortunate enough to do like some coaching with him. And one of the probably the biggest thing that Dan taught me is that you can write about whatever you want to write about as long as you can find a way to introduce it to your audience.
Mm.
And this was like the biggest kind of like brain break for me. And he's like, he had this example where he's like, I really wanted to write about consciousness and conscious development. And it was like the 5 stages of consciousness and spiral dynamics. It's all this kind of like spiritual, crazy stuff with elevating it. And he's like, but if I just started with the 5 stages of consciousness, like how to raise your consciousness, like so few people are going to read that.
Mm.
So instead, I think his like hook for it was something like how to grow up
Mm.
or how to take control of your life. And then the whole intro part is like, okay, now how do I bridge from that idea that is known and relevant to my audience and bridge to this thing I actually want to talk about and introduce them to it?
Mm.
Like this, like I really, really recommend people sit with this idea and really think about it and try it for themselves. It is such a fun exercise and it will allow you to write about almost anything you want to write about.
Mm.
So in this example, he'd be like, I've noticed that most people are struggling financially. Their like life is devoid of meaning. They don't know what to do with their life. And people think that, you just go to school and get a job. But the actual solution is that you just haven't raised your consciousness enough. And then people are like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And it's like raising your consciousness isn't this like hooey wooey thing. It's actually like just becoming more mature. And it tends to go through these 5 stages. And then you use like the people's credibility. You start talking about that. Now,
Mm.
that's a pretty like crazy example. But in terms of like putting yourself on there and talking about things you want to talk about in your business, it's just got me so much more interested in, okay, well, people want to learn about how to earn as a writer. But does that mean that I can't also talk about, emotional intelligence and how to become more resilient because that connects to being more consistent with your
Mm.
writing? So it's like, what problems, what pain, what ideas and things are relevant to the commercial side of my audience? How do I use those as the headlines and the very beginning of the piece? And then how do I give them something they don't expect by
Mm.
bridging to something creatively that I really want to talk about? And now you get the commercial side, but you also get the creative artistic expression. You don't have to trade one for the other. And
Yep.
like, I'll be a little real. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you just have to write like a commercial piece. And like, if you're ghostwriting, sometimes you're like, well, this isn't the stuff I necessarily want to write about, but I actually like writing about this a hell of a lot more than working like a crappy job where I'm not writing at all and not developing my skills as a writer. So this is a trade I'm willing to make with this particular client.
Mm.
But I just want to like use this as an example to break the myth that you have to think of a piece as commercial or creative.
Mm.
Like you can bridge them. It's just all about relevance to the audience and then thinking of introducing them to something that you want to write about.
Mm. if you're thinking about that process, do you have the commercial side of it in mind, and then you try to think of a story from your life or that you've heard that matches that commercial, say, or even say like the teaching element that you want people to take away? Or do you start with the story and then think, here's what I learned through this event that happened to me, and here's how I can apply it to my audience?
It's a fantastic question. And the answer is it goes both ways depending on the idea. So I have some things that I'm like, basically I have a folder. It's like, okay, these are things my audience really wants me to talk about, and I have to talk about them.
Mm,
And with these ideas, they tend to be a little bit more trite. Like an example would be how to grow on Substack. I did a newsletter recently that was like, here's a free course on how to grow. And the problem I have with pieces like that is I don't want to say the same things as everybody else.
mm,
I don't want to be trite. So I'm like, yeah, I kind of know what everyone's saying, write notes and do it, like write good headlines. And I'm like, what's like a unique element in here that is not expected, that is still highly useful?
mm.
And it takes me sometimes weeks or even a month to find that thing. And I'll be noodling on it. I'm like, I have that idea there. It's in a folder. And I'm just like going on walks. I'm thinking, trying to find that piece. And for that particular one, it was your goal is not to go viral. It's to become like newsworthy. And you need to build in public. You need to share what you're doing, and you need to document that journey. And you need to be kind of like a hit Netflix show that people come back to every week.
Yeah.
And that posted really well for me, and people like DM'd me and said, hey, that whole part about being newsworthy, I've never heard anyone else say that, and it was like the part that really spoke to me, and I
Mm,
felt understood. And I'm like, okay, cool, like I'm glad I sat with that and didn't just say what everyone else was saying. And I tried to think what's a useful way to say that.
yeah.
But the inverse can also be true, because sometimes I have an idea that I really really want to talk about, and I'm like, I don't know how to get there. Like I don't know how to make it relevant. I've had one that I've been sitting on for probably like 6 months actually, that I still
Really?
haven't found a way to bridge in. And it's around this idea called credential commoditisation.
Mm,
And it's basically that I'll try to make this not too nerdy, but that, whenever you have like supply and demand economics, high supply and low demand, stuff goes down, high demand, low supply, prices go up. And
mm,
I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, does that mean that colleges basically cannibalize their own markets of students?
mm,
Because I have a lot of friends who are trying to get jobs as programmers right now, and they actually are struggling to get jobs. And to me, that's weird, because like 10 years ago when I was, graduating high school and stuff, people were like, if you want a job forever, become a software engineer. You go to college and become a software engineer, you'll just get a high paying job right out of school. And back then it was true. And then I observed, why are my friends now struggling to get jobs in software engineering? I thought this was like one of the most defensible jobs you could possibly get.
mm,
And then I was like, and then I started thinking about supply and demand and credential commoditization, how if you go to school, over time, the school floods the job market, and the more people that enter the market, it lowers the wages. And they basically like eliminate, or they create too much competition within their own markets over a long enough time horizon.
mm.
And I personally really love the idea. I've wanted to write about it for 6 months. I still haven't like found the way to get into it where I think people would really give a shit. Even in explaining it to you, I'm like, oh my God, this sounds so nerdy and lame and like economic.
No, it's really
I don't
interesting.
know.
I stuff too. Yeah.
Well, thank you. But that's like an example of one that's in my folder of I'll write about it when I find the intro bridge into it.
Yeah.
So those are like the two ways I think about it. It's to summarize that, it's like known problem, known pain into unknown solution or paradoxical solution, or you have like an unknown idea that's really unique, but you need a known thing to bridge into it. And I
Mm,
think, which one do you have first? And you got to find the other one.
yeah. Deborah said there that happened with MBAs over a decade ago too. So yeah. And also want to just highlight a really scary thing you said there in the midst of all that, Taylin, that you graduated high school 10 years ago, which that kind of that kind of terrifies me. If it's that recent for you, because it's been only 20 years for me. So yeah, that's kind of scary how
Well, I'm 31, so
you're
it's
31.
I, 12, 13 years ago or something. I don't
Even so, it's still scary. I'm getting closer to 40 on my end, so yeah. No, I love that. I love the idea. I love the way you think about things as well. Like um, I do like the idea of just taking more time to think about stuff before just throwing it out there. And also, I love the fact you talked about, uh, you used the word noodling, which I love as well. But you talked about like thinking about things in public and testing things out and working on stuff, and telling people what you're struggling with and what you're not that you're struggling with, but that you're grappling with, you're trying to figure out. I think is such a powerful thing to do in terms of bringing your audience with you, on a journey. And then whenever you do eventually get to the stage where you can say, um, I've been thinking about this thing for 6 months. You've heard me talking about how I'm thinking about it for 6 months, and here's the answer that I've arrived at. That's going to be something that people are going to be super interested to read about and dig into, and they're gonna follow you on that journey. So I think that, yeah, I love that process, and I think I wish more people would do that instead of just going for the shallow end of the pool a lot of the time, where we just kind of we go for the easy answer, we go for the thing everyone else is talking about. Where if we went a little bit deeper, we maybe hit our audience in a better place. And story is something that's really really important for me in terms of content, because I really do think that too many people miss this, where they go straight into the teaching element. Excuse me, voice still gone. The teaching element, the commercial side of things, but they miss the story, and the story is what hooks people in. It's what they remember more than anything else. They might remember the teaching element after they've remembered the story further down the line. They remember the story that Taylin told about this thing that happened to him at some point in college or in high school or whatever. And the stories what sticks with them, but then that's like the trigger that brings them back to the teaching point again, if that makes sense. So yeah, I love the way you think about it. I love the way you walk through that process.
That leads me to a question I have for you, because I'll admit that, like, remembering to open with a story is something that I can be so bad at. I'm someone who's sometimes like, oh, I just want to talk about this idea and I just dive right in. But
Hmm.
I really respect people who have gotten so good at like storytelling when it comes to newsletters and things like that. How do you think about story structures and fitting a story at the beginning? Like, do you have some kind of formats, frameworks, flow? Is it all taste for you? Like, what does that look
Mhm.
like?
I think for me, what I love in terms of fiction, and then what I also apply to writing on Substack, for instance, is dropping the reader into the middle of the action. So whatever is happening, there's no preamble. You don't say, here's all the stuff that happened before I got to the story. You just drop them right in there with, here's the conversation I was having, here's the thing that happened, and then you kind of fill in the blanks after that. And you try to start with a line or a couple of lines that obviously is a real hook that feeds on from the headline. And I think if you can do that and then just kind of just weave in the actual teaching point, and in many ways the teaching point doesn't have to be massively deeply connected to the story. The story is just the hook, and the story is what people are going to remember. And all you need is a good bridge. You mentioned a bridge before. As long as there's a bridge that coherently takes someone from the story. So it's not like I was walking down the street and I saw a badger by the side of the road. And then here's 5 things I learned about business. And when I thought about that later, it has to be like, it has to make sense. So that someone's going to naturally follow that progression in their mind whenever they ruminate on the story again later. So yeah, it's very much like I do in fiction. I dump people in the middle of the action and then just kind of draw the story from that point most of the time.
Okay, follow-up question for you. The
Yep.
the main thing I heard from that was they're going to remember the story, or it's like a memorable story. How do you think about finding memorable moments to write stories about?
Yeah. Well, I think uh, I think we have this tendency to think that the stories that we tell have to be really, really dramatic a lot of the time, and have to be about this big like life changing moment. I was in like a car accident, or someone I know like passed away or whatever. Like obviously those are big dramatic stories, but it can also be about really, really simple stuff as well that that just happen to you in your day to day, because those are the things people will connect with and be able to relate to most easily. Like you can tell a really, really dramatic story about something really mundane, and it's just in the way that you tell it. So you could say, I couldn't get my lawnmower to start, but the way you tell that is, I was, you know, I turned my lawnmower over, I like torn it apart, I just could not figure it out. I was going to throw the whole thing out, blah blah blah, whatever. But as long as you drive it with emotion and you tell it in a way that's going to grip people right at the start, but it's about something that they can relate to, something that's everyday. I think those kind of stories are far more effective than something big and lofty. Like I lost like $10,000 in a bad scam deal or something like that. Like not everyone's going to be able to relate to that kind of thing, but they can relate to I cut my finger chopping onions in my kitchen because I was crying and I couldn't see the knife or whatever, that sort of thing. So I think if you can find a story that's relatable in your everyday life, and everyone can do this, and I know other writers who send out stories on a daily basis. They send out a daily email, and it's a story every single time, and it's not always about something dramatic. It's usually something quite mundane.
It reminds me of the idea from Storyworthy, I think it is, where it's like write about, I call them mundane moments
Mm.
because they just need to be relatable to people. And, I'm feeling a little called out because I'm actually quite bad for this. I'm the person who's like, oh, I need a story. I should talk about that time I did a spirit quest in Peru. Like, and I'm like, actually, it's probably not like the story I need for this. So is this like a skill that you slowly developed, being able to look at, your past week and be like, oh, what are the mundane moments I can write about? Or like, how does somebody learn that?
Yeah, I think. I mean, for me, as an author of fiction, I love reading and I love writing about just the really simple, kind of like almost boring stuff that's happening to a character sometimes, but writing about it in a way that you can't look away from in that sense. So like someone can be drinking a cup of coffee, but then they're watching the steam waft up from the cup, and then that draws them into like a memory from like years ago, but this thing that happened to them. Um, it's just trying to like. I think it is a muscle you have to work. You have to kind of work at it. It's not something that happens overnight, but it's just trying to find things in the mundane that people can connect with most easily. And yeah, it's something I'm trying to get better at all the time. And I don't think you can force it either, because I think things happen to us on a daily basis, non-stop, all the time. I can think of 20 different things happened to me today, and I barely left the house today. But there's tons of stuff that happened that I can write about in a story. So I think for anyone who wants to try and hone this skill, write down those boring, mundane moments, have them in a folder like you mentioned, go back to them and look at something and think to yourself, is that something that had any kind of emotional impact on me whatsoever? And can I draw a story out of that? And if I can, if there's any kind of resonance at all that you remember about it, then it means your readers are going to probably remember it as well. So that's maybe the way I think about it. It's not overly refined, but yeah, something I'm working on.
No, it's fantastic. Like, even I will say the way that you just described, the steam was coming out from the cup and it reminded me of a memory. I actually could like imagine that in like a TV show or something where like
Yeah, yeah.
pan like damn, that's good. And then I instantly thought, if this person's hallucinating memories from steam coming out of a cup, like what kind of psychedelics are they on or something? Like,
What's
that's
in
what I'm
that
really
cup?
thinking about. Yeah, well, what is in the cup?
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, no, yeah, I think it's just I think everything in terms of writing and the business of writing is just it's a constant act of just iteration and testing things out and seeing what works. And I think if you can learn from your mistakes and learn from other people's mistakes as well, I never I think of everything as an experiment at some level. Like if it doesn't work, that's okay. It's just an experiment in the field. I'll move on to the next thing. I think we put too much pressure on ourselves as writers to succeed right from the get go, and I think that's a big thing we should just maybe give ourselves freedom from.
Dude, I actually love this, and it reminds me of some of the most pain I've felt since I've been a writer, which is funny enough to say I love it. But
Hmm.
like what I used to do as I was starting out in business is I used to really obsess over the products and services that I was offering, like in a bad way, where I'd be like, okay, I'm going to spend like 3 to 6 months building out this like crazy product or service, and then I'm going to refine it. And we're going to do this crazy landing page. And we're going to do this, and I've done that a couple times now, where I've launched a product and it's like no one even wanted it, but I just obsessed over it for like half a year, and
Mm.
I'm just like, and the amount of pain that I always felt was so extreme. Like, I'm just like, oh my God, like, I can't believe I just put like a 6 month bet into this business idea that did not work. And then there's other stuff that I've just done kind of off the cuff without thinking about it. And like people seem to want to buy those. And
Mm.
it's really changed my approach to thinking about business now. Like you were saying, like everything's a test. That's why that post I did yesterday was like, hey, I'm testing if newsletter ghostwriting is a thing. And I'm just going to tell you that I'm doing the test. And the reason I came to doing stuff like that is because I've just like failed too many times releasing products or services and been like, damn, I wish I would have like tested it in the market and seen if people were interested and seen if I could create content around it. And I've just learned my lesson from that. So now I'm like, okay, like, it doesn't even matter if I fail in public testing this thing. because I'd rather just fail in public after a week or two of testing and say, hey, it's not worth it. I'm going to do this thing instead, than try this thing for like 3 to 6 months and be like, shit, like I got me by wasted all this time.
Yeah. And I think it's the same for writers as well. If you're writing a book, sometimes you can write a book and then spend like 6 months or more on it, and then you come to the end of it and you put it out there, and then people hate it, and then you're like, oh crap, that was like I thought that was amazing. I put my heart and soul into it. Yeah. So um
Man,
yeah,
that was
writing
hard.
writing's fun.
Yeah, love
Yeah,
it. Do
we
it,
love
do
it.
it, guys. It's great.
That's it. Taylin, I'm gonna wrap this up now because I've got a golden retriever behind me, and I think he's starting to get a bit antsy. We want to get out of the room. So, and this has been an amazing conversation. That we've had about 165 people joining us throughout the course of this chat. Is there anything you want to leave people with in terms of what they should check out that you're working on right now? Is it just read your latest post, or just to subscribe to your publication, or where do you want to send them?
Yeah, I'd say just Substack. Like I'm basically just building in public. I'm building my ghostwriting agency in public. I'm getting my paid newsletter subscribers in public, sharing exactly how I'm doing it. I might launch a writing community. People have been asking me if I would do that. So if I do, I'll do that in public. I would just say on Substack, I'm just basically sharing everything that I'm doing so that you guys can do the same. So that would be it. And vice
Awesome.
versa for you. If people from my publication are listening to this, what would you like to leave them with, David?
Check out my podcast because I'm always I think it's a great entryway into getting to know who I am and the kind of stuff that I'm interested in. And I just love getting more listeners on each episode as well. So yeah, check out the podcast. Check out what I published recently, and if you're interested in anything I'm working on, feel free to reach out and connect in some way. I'm always keen to see what other people are working on and how I can help serve them best. But yeah, Taylor, I love this conversation. It's been so good. I'm going to share it, maybe onto YouTube or something later on, or on the Substack too, because I think it's really good for people to go back and check out. So if you're here right now, make sure to subscribe up at the top there to Taylor's publication. And yeah, I'll catch you again real soon, Taylor. I think we could definitely do another one of these lives at some stage because this is really good fun. And yeah, hope you'll be up for that.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to. And I think you and I are chatting tomorrow for my podcast. So like
Yeah, yeah.
we're becoming best friends over here, man.
We are totally are opposite sides of the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I love it. But yeah, Tion, thanks so much. I know your day's just starting, so enjoy the rest of it. I'm going to go to bed. And I'll chat to you tomorrow night then.
Sounds good. Have a good night,
Yeah.
man. And I appreciate this. This was super fun. We'd be happy to do it again.
Thanks so much. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.